I'm good. Did you miss me?
I did a lot. It's a lot.
I really don't want to get your channel deleted, Reed. That you're asking for serious trouble if I answer that question.
Well, then stop fucking talking about us, man.
How much perceived value do you think we will lose?
Well, I mean, we lose a lot.
The establishment Republicans are not Republican in name only. That's what the GOP is.
So many people want everyone else to come to libertarianism the same way they did.
Right. The slave mentality is praised.
All right. Thanks,
I want
Mike.
your phone to blow up with notifications every time the show is on. Thank you, Reed.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for checking into the Naturalist Capitalist again. I know I just did a stream a couple hours ago, but it's Sunday afternoon, so I've got some free time. On the other end today, I've got another truck driver, another red-blooded American, another guy who just wants to be left alone, wants to do his job. Taylor, he goes as American Trucker on Twitter. How you doing tonight, sir?
How's it going, sir?
It's going good. I'm glad to have you on. Thanks for coming on.
Oh, glad to be on, man. Appreciate you reaching out to me and inviting me out, and hope my lighting's okay. I'm actually working tonight, so here we are.
Yeah, no, it's all good. Where are you anyways right now?
Just outside of, what's that? Akron, Ohio.
Yeah, okay. Yep. I know right where you are. Yep.
Yeah, I just pulled over for a little bit, talk with you on an exit ramp, and this is how our day is.
So you're a truck driver, obviously. What do you move? What do you haul?
I am actually an owner-operator. I own my truck, and I pull their trailers to a tanking company, and I pull liquid chemicals.
Okay. You do regional or over the road, or how does it work?
It don't matter to me. Whatever pays the bills. I'll go to California. I'll do 50-mile round trips. I'll do 1,000-mile round trips. It don't matter to me.
Yep. So how long you been trucking? When did you get into it first?
Well, I got my CDLs in '95, so it's been a few years.
Mm-hmm. What did you? What was your first trucking job?
My first trucking job was hauling gasoline local for Brandon Oil.
Yep.
So in East Tennessee, hauled gas out of Knoxville and just heating oil. Started out with a straight truck and then moved up to the tractor trailers and really hadn't stopped since.
Yep. So do you like trucking, or did you like it from day one, or was it just a job, or is it something you actually really enjoyed doing?
Well, I love trucking, don't get me wrong, but there's things about it I don't like, like anything else. There's no such thing as the perfect whatever. I love my wife dearly, but there's things about her that just irk me. But and she loves me, but there's things about me that irk her. So I love trucking. I just think that there's things about trucking that I don't like. I don't like being overregulated. I don't like, there's a lot of things, but for the most part, 98% of it, it's been a blessing. So,
yeah. So have you come to like it less over the years as, things get more stringent, or have you really noticed that a lot, or what do you think about that in general?
I don't think it's the fact that I like it less. I think I'm just maybe overwhelmed with the bullshit, the regulations that I think when people start nitpicking, you just start building up that tolerance, just like I love. Don't get me wrong, I love trucking. I just a lot of the new regulations are, as much as I love it, I gotta ask myself, does the new regulations coming in balance out to keep me here? Yeah.
The ELDs they're dumb. I mean, when I started driving back in 2013, I was still doing paper logs, and you can fudge it, 20 minutes either way. To me, what's so dumb about it is the exactness. If you're 1 second over, then you're in violation, and it makes it really hard to pick a good landing spot for the night, because you're like, well, I really don't want to stop right now. but
Mhm.
I have, it's 72 minutes to that truck stop, and I've only got 68 minutes on my clock left. That type of
Yeah.
shit is just what's stupid.
And now you become a criminal.
Yep. Yeah.
You know, I the ELD has always been a touchy topic. There's a lot of guys swear by it. Some truckers absolutely love the ELD. I absolutely hate it. I don't hate it. I think the ELD is a great tool.
Mhm.
It's a great time management tool that every truck could possibly benefit from having. But with that being said, I don't like the fact that it's mandated.
Mhm.
You know, I should be able to choose how to run my business. You know, the ELD doesn't change the law. The laws are still in place. We have to, log our time. And I think that the biggest issue with me with the ELD, not even bringing up the constitutional aspect of self-incrimination, but I like I like things balanced, and I like unity, and I like everybody being in uniform, so to speak. I like what applies to you should apply to me. So when you have other truckers out here in different industries of trucking, whether it's cow hauling or agriculture or drivers with trucks 99 and below that are legally allowed to run paper logs, they're held to a 15-minute increment, and I'm held to the second, and we're the same drivers.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I don't think that exemptions, in some cases, they give us this ELD pill and for us to swallow, in the name of safety, but there's no evidence that it's actually safer. And if it's about safety, you don't just lift safety regulations under any circumstance. So every time there's when it's convenient for the government, they lift our regulations and exempt us to haul water to hurricane victims. And if it's safe, or if it's really about safety, why would you lift a safety regulation for one and then hold somebody else accountable? So that's the issues I have with it. It has to be uniform. Everybody has to follow the same rules, or the rules ain't really valid to me.
Yeah, it is funny. Like, if you can temporarily lift the restrictions, you wonder why they're there in the first place. A lot of the time, I mean, if the whole thing isn't going to fall apart when you lift that regulation, why have it anyway? Kind of.
I have a standard. I have different analogies, and if it makes sense, then it's legitimate. If it doesn't make sense, to me, it's bullshit. Now think about this for a minute. Now you lift this ELD is in the name of safety. It was supposed to save 26 lives according to their data, which we have proven that's crap. But think about that guy that goes to work, and him and 10 of his buddies go to work, and they climb them big towers. I'm talking about the phone towers.
Yep.
Now think about it. Their boss coming up to him says, "Okay, 5 of you guys don't have to wear your safety harnesses today. Out of them 10 people, which ones aren't going to wear their safety harness?" Every damn one of them's going to wear it, because it's a true safety device. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because in the name of safety, that's a good safety law. You know what I'm saying? So when other people cannot abide by the rules, and other people are forced to, it's not really a good rule.
Yeah, it's a good point. Like, I used to do line work. If you were allowed to not wear your rubber gloves, I don't think.
Yeah, exactly.
Off. Yeah.
So with that being said, you see where I'm coming from with the analogy. That's a good rule.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good safety rule. So, but when you say this is safety, and you make a law that makes me have to have this thing, then and you tell other drivers, well, you're exempt, then it's not really a good rule for safety. It's I support capitalism, don't get me wrong, but not by the government. The government isn't supposed to be in business.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
Profit.
I think that probably 95% of the safety regulations are really compliance regulations. They just, I mean, because if you break them, most of the time you just have to pay a fine. So it's like, wait a second, if a fine is the only thing you punish me with, then I don't know. It seems to be just a money-making ruse and just a way to keep us under their thumbs. I mean, like, you're so right. Like, so few of those regulations make any sense, because all the ones that do make sense, you would self-impose them anyways.
Yeah, I wouldn't need nobody. And I don't know your thoughts on this, but I'll touch a topic with it. It's kind of like the vaccine.
Mm-hmm. That's where I was.
If it was a true vaccine, you wouldn't have to, number one, pay us. You wouldn't have to bribe us. You wouldn't have to shame us. You wouldn't have to intimidate us, and you wouldn't have to cancel us. We would be the first in line.
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, all the massive. The other thing is, like, sometimes, sometimes, like, you might actually do something if there wasn't, like, so much bullshit pushing behind it, and it's just the amount of bullshit that they try to push through the tube at you, that you just go, like, you know what, fuck you, I'm not going to do this. Like, you're making me skeptical now, because you're pushing this so hard, and you're so demonizing of anyone who disagrees with you, and that has kind of the same effect. It's like, it just makes you want to go against whatever they're pushing. You know what I mean?
Well, I don't normally. Things just have to make sense to me for me to understand, a topic you were talking about. And we possibly could disagree on this topic, but I seen the 9/11 thing you posted yesterday, and it doesn't matter to me what you believe, because that's your right to believe. It's your right to process the evidence that you've seen and make a conclusion. Now, if it's factual, there's only one conclusion. If you have evidence of factual, but I think it's fair to say that there's a lot of evidence that a lot of people question. So it's kind of hard to have a factual opinion, or it's more of an opinion than a fact. But I don't know. Things just have to make sense to me. If you tell me that a plane took down two planes took down 3 buildings, then I just want to know how you come to that conclusion. Well, obviously we've seen videos of planes going through a building, 2 buildings. Now the 3rd building, it's a lot of people have their I don't understand. I'll just be the first. I don't know how it fell down. I'll be the first to tell you, I don't know. Do I think it had anything to do with the 2 planes from the other buildings? Personally, no. I think there's a lot more that went on that day than we'll ever know. Mm-hmm. But they give us just enough to fight amongst each other, and sometimes I think it's intentional. And I don't care how anybody believes. And all I ask in return is they don't care how I believe, as long as my beliefs don't interrupt your life,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, the thing with 9/11, that actually kind of feeds into the point I was just making, that, you are not allowed to question the official narrative, which, I mean, I know you probably didn't see all of that altercation I got into, but I actually don't buy the official narrative either. But I just think that there's a lot of bullshit surrounding fringe conspiracies. But I do think there's a lot of unanswered questions. But what the establishment does is they don't allow you to question those things. So then that foments doubt and foments, like, other conspiracies to pick up that might not be true. So it's the same idea. Like, I mean, if you want people to believe what you have to say, or understand your point of view, you have to talk to them. If you just shut them up and don't let them, ask any questions, then you are going to have people instantly reject everything you have to say. That's just kind of the natural reaction to that.
Well, here's kind of how my thought process is on any topic, really. It's when I was in the military, I was able to go to college, and I studied criminal justice. So in my mind, when I argue with somebody, it's kind of like, in my mind, I'm in a courtroom. Mm-hmm. When somebody's telling me something, and they say, "Oh, Reed said this," I just stop them right there and say, that's kind of hearsay. prove to me that you said it. And if you can't, then whatever they just said that you said is irrelevant to the conversation. Prove to me, what's your source? If you give me a bit of it, I want to know your source. And if you don't have that, when somebody starts a sentence of, well, they said, well, I don't know. I even want to talk to you, because we can't have a constructive conversation if you don't offer any real evidence. So with 9/11, here's the problem that I have with 9/11. Like, look at Pennsylvania. Now, this is just from research that I've done, looking. It's not like I've spent a shit ton of time, but just when you see the evidence of 1,000 plane crashes and there's debris scattered everywhere, and then there's this one day we have a plane crash and there's zero evidence of a plane crash. There's no luggage, and they said the earth swallowed it. And I'm like, okay, well, the other planes have fell that way, but there was evidence of a wreck. 9/11 with the Pentagon, you have a 20-some foot hole that a 50-some foot around plane made. A wing would have hit the damn building, but the window was still intact, and there's a book and a computer. But it got so hot in there, and that doesn't make sense to me. So I ask questions. So my legitimate question is, okay, you're telling me that a plane hit this. I wasn't there. I didn't see it. So you got this hole, and it got so hot that it incinerated metal, bones, luggage, everything. But yet there's a plastic computer monitor on a desk on one of the floors. That doesn't make sense to me. So I ask questions. And the mentality of the people I ask questions to, oh, you're a conspiracist, And it's like, I really think that's a legitimate question. And until that satisfies in my mind, I'll always be a doubter that more happened that day than meets the eye. I have questions, and it's not just 9/11, the school shootings. You see these school shootings, when you see a dad on camera laughing, and the camera guy's like, oh, guys, we're rolling, we're live, and all of a sudden he goes from laughing to crying. That doesn't make sense to me. I don't know if you have kids or not, but if one of my kids was just shot and killed, I don't think there's anything you could tell me that would make me laugh. So I ask questions. When they use the ambulances for roadblocks to keep traffic out of the parking lots, I'm thinking, well, as a former EMT, I don't think we would use our ambulances to keep traffic out of parking lots. We would use them to set up triage, if anything, transport, victims out of there. Use them for what they're designed to be used for. So you ask questions, oh, you're a conspiracist. No, it just doesn't make sense. Now, do I know what happened? No, I sure don't know. I wasn't there, but I know that what they're feeding me, it sounds like a lot of bullshit, but and the next thing you know, you got all these, it's just funny that every time there's any kind of incident, there's always a new law trying to get passed. So, there's an incident and there's a new law. What's the common denominator? I mean, it makes perfect sense. I'm not saying that these didn't happen, and I'm not saying that I'm saying that either these happen intentionally and for this reason, or it could be that they're taking advantage of a good crisis for a political purpose.
I think the truth is usually complicated, and it's usually somewhere in the middle. And I think that you're 100% right to question everything. I think where people make the mistake is something doesn't add up in the official story that comes out, whether, whatever it is. And then they immediately come up with a completely unfounded theory and believe it with all their hearts. And there's nothing you can do to dissuade them from believing that. There's a difference between skepticism and agnosticism and just like contrarian.
That's a good point.
Yeah. I just did a whole episode on 9/11 about an hour ago. And it was about Flight 93 and Flight 77. And I think that what ends up happening is a lot of people come up with their own story, and then there's nothing you can do to convince them it's not true. And it's sort of like people who believe the official narrative, and there's nothing you can do to get them to question it at all. Like with Flight 77, when it hit the Pentagon, there are lampposts that were knocked over from the flight coming in. There's a generator that was hit by one of the engines. And then when you hit a concrete wall, the wings are probably not going to go through the concrete, where the fuselage has a lot more mass to it. So it's going to make a hole, but no one's willing to talk about this with someone. They're just going to write them off. And I think there are some really dumb opinions that I don't even like. Some people don't think a plane hit the World Trade Center at all. And
I've seen that theory, but it's kind of hard to fake that on national TV. You know what I'm saying?
Like thousands of people. So like there's some opinions that I do think are like so dumb that, I mean, and not just with 9/11, with anything that, it doesn't really it doesn't deserve entertaining a conversation. But I think a lot of people on a lot of this other stuff, like they either haven't heard the whole story or they just have questions. And then if you tell them, like, stop asking questions, no, this is dumb, like, shut up, then they're probably not going to be like, oh, okay, you've got a good point. Like, they're probably going to change their mind by actually having a discussion with them.
Well, the problem I have with New York on 9/11 is what doesn't make sense to me. When I was in the Army, I was in the Army in the early 90s, mid 90s, up to 2000 in National Guard. And I have a couple different MOSs, and one of my MOSs was fuel. And one thing we learned at Fort Lee is the temperature of fuel, what it burns at, and how to recognize if it's oxygen, starving for oxygen, or if it's got a lot of oxygen, by the color of the flames and the smoke. But 90% of the fuel from the plane blew up on impact. You've seen the fireball, and then you don't even really see flames, but you see a lot of black smoke, which means there's no oxygen. So it's like, and people don't realize, but they know it, but they don't know they know it. But like when you're in a campfire and you put a bunch of leaves on a fire, until the oxygen really hits it, the leaves kind of smother the fire and you get a lot of smoke, a lot of black smoke, because there's no oxygen to the flame. But once that flame catches and it gets that oxygen, you have a flame and very little smoke. Now that day, with that being said, that day when you look at those towers, I seen a lot of black smoke coming out of that building, and I seen a fireball on impact, which tells me that there's not a whole lot of jet fuel in that building because it hit on impact. And I see the black smoke and I don't see any flames. So an hour later, the building falls. I mean, it's like, okay, that doesn't make sense to me. I'm not disputing the fact that a plane hit the building, but when you have some people saying this and they have no reason to lie, and government officials say that, and you don't trust them anyway. Hey, I don't know the truth. I don't know if it was a controlled demolition per se. I have my thoughts on it. I think evidence supports the fact that it was more than it doesn't, but I don't know, because sometimes strange shit happens. I don't know. I just I think it's fair to say, however you believe, I think it's fair to say that the vast majority of Americans, when you talk about 9/11, are not satisfied with the answers to the questions they have. I think that's a fair statement.
Yeah, I think it is too. I guess we'll talk about it a little bit, just what you were bringing up there. So the fire.
I didn't mean to get off topic.
I didn't necessarily have a topic for this discussion anyway, just see where it went. But with the fire, when you have the weight of the building from the 73rd floor or the 91st floor, depending on which building it was, and it burns for an hour, even if it's not at full capacity, like you're saying, you don't actually have to have the steel melt for it to fall.
No, it just has to bend. Yeah.
Right. And then you also, when the plane hits at several hundred miles per hour, the fireproofing on all the beams is going to get blown off. And also there's no sprinklers that were working, on the upper floors of the building. So there's no way to fight the fire at all. The biggest reason I never believed it was a controlled demolition is because it falls from the plane's impact. And if you even look at close-up videos of it right before it falls, the walls kind of get sucked in right before it implodes. And what that is that's the supports for the floor as they're bending down, they actually pull the edges of the walls in, and then you
Yeah.
can see it like bow and break. Whereas if it had been explosives, it would have just blown, floor by
Yeah.
floor, went down. So I don't know. I mean, it's just, I think you're right that, if you're told to not think about it and you're not allowed to question it, that forces people to think other ways. I'm just worried when people, when they go too far with it, and then they're not willing to hear you out and be like, whoa, hold on. Like, you think this happened. You got to think through that all the way, like, instead of just jumping to a conclusion because what you're being sold is bullshit, if that makes sense.
Well, just like you said, your opinion's different than mine, but you gave the reason why. You said, basically this is why you think this way, but you gave a logical explanation. You see what I'm saying? That's giving a source, that you give a reason why. Some people, it's like, oh no, I don't think it happened that way. You're just a dumbass. And I'm like, I can't talk to people like that. You can't argue construct. You can always argue different. You can have a different opinion and still be friends, but it's how you argue. But no, like you said, your opinion applies by the laws of physics. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It does. I mean, I'm not disputing what you say, but then you have other people that were there saying they heard this and they heard they heard explosions. I wasn't there. I was close, but I wasn't within eyesight.
Were you in New York City or?
No, I was actually in. I left Newark, New Jersey, Port Newark that morning, and by the time I found out about it, I was already in Virginia, coming back south. So I seen it on the TV at the truck stop.
Damn, you saw those. Did you see the towers on your way out of Newark in that morning?
I go up there all the time. It's not like I even look for it.
Yeah.
It's like I go by places all the time, and it's not like I observe it until after the fact. It's like, oh, I was just there. I was not in New York City at that morning. I mean, I left about 4 o'clock in the morning, and by the time I heard about it, it was 10, 11 o'clock in the morning, and I was already down in Virginia. So, but I do think that there's a now one bit of evidence that I seen somebody presented was of a big skyscraper. I think it was in Japan or Taiwan that burnt for like 20 something hours straight, a good solid hot fire, and it did zero damage to the structure. But what they and it was a good piece of evidence, but what they failed to mention was, even though that building burnt, there was no jar, there was nothing impacted the building. So I don't think that was a fair I don't think that was really a fair analogy or example showing that this building burnt for 20 some hours of full flame because it wasn't never impacted by something that hit it at 500 mile an hour. Yeah. So the scenario is somewhat a little different. Yeah. Had the buildings not been hit by a plane and just burnt like that, no, they would never have fell. But when you get something that weighs what the plane weighs and it's 550, 600 mile an hour impact, but that shakes the shit out of somebody. That'll break nuts and bolts in places that nuts and bolts wasn't designed to break.
Yeah, I want to shift the discussion a little bit. Talk about the idea of being friends while disagreeing, because that's something that I've always believed in. My dad's side of the family was always pretty liberal, and my mom's side was always pretty conservative, and we always got along. Didn't matter. Like, we would disagree on things, but it was fine. We're moving away from that as a society. I mean, now they're trying to frame half the country as being domestic terrorists, and then the Republicans think the other half of the country is communist. Where they forget, like, these are your neighbors, these are your moms, your dads, your cousins, your uncles, your friends, and it's just really sad to see that go away. And I was just wondering, is that something that you've noticed over the last, I don't know, 20 years? It seems like pretty much since 9/11, this type of stuff has been happening.
I'm gonna tell you, I've got friends. I got friends of mine that are liberals, and and some of them I can't even have a conversation with politically, and politics aren't a big. Sometimes there's some wise ass cracks made, here and there, and I know the intent of it is they don't mean nothing by it. And so when I crack my jokes, they don't, and they know I don't mean nothing by it. We just agree to disagree. But here's the thing: a lot of people fail to recognize. Okay, I'm pro Second Amendment. I like my guns. I don't wave my guns. I'm not irresponsible with my guns. My guns are to protect my family or protect you.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it is a proven fact that people become a product of their environment. Okay, so if you live in the middle of Kansas somewhere on some farm, chances are you're going to have a lot of guns because it's not really a big deal.
Right.
But if you live downtown New York City, do you really need an AR strapped across your back? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So now I'm not saying that you can't have one, but it's not needed, and I don't know. I just think that if I lived in a big city and that was my way of life, then I would probably adapt to my environment and I would probably be more liberal because I'm exposed to a lot more than I'm exposed to living in the county, the country.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard for me living in the county that has almost zero homeless, no, there's really not any racism, in my parts. There's the issues at hand don't happen as often in my neck of the woods as they do yours, so they're not a big problem.
Mm-hmm.
But when you go to the big cities, there's so many people that there's more issues. So I think that, to sum it up in a nutshell, if I think that these issues need to be addressed where they happen, and apply your mandates, whatever it is that you have to do to fix the solution, offer a solution where they're happening, but don't make it a law where it doesn't happen. I mean, look at it this way: look at a divided highway on the interstate. Let's say 70 mile an hour going down the interstate, right? That's a good place to do 70 mile an hour. But what about that interstate that runs through downtown Atlanta? Do you really think 70 mile an hour is a good speed limit there?
Right. Yeah.
They're both interstates, right?
Yeah.
So you apply a lower speed limit where you need it. You don't just apply a lower speed limit, say it goes for everybody. It doesn't make sense. So that's kind of how I am on them topics. I get where the liberals come from because that's where they live, but that's not where I live. So leave me alone, and I won't try to dictate laws where you live at. And as long as you kind of have that understanding, then they're like, hey, you don't hate me. I see where you're coming from. But my main objective is when I'm talking to somebody that disagrees with my beliefs, first off, I don't care that they're entitled to that. And number two, I don't hate them for that. I don't even not like them for that because it's their freedom to do so. I also don't belittle them and make my beliefs more valuable than theirs. I don't make them feel that way. Mm-hmm. So I kind of get along with everybody. It works for me.
Yeah. Well, what I see as the big delineator there is it's very rare that I see a conservative complaining about what's going on in California who doesn't care. Like, he'll just be like, oh, whatever. I mean, if he's a trucker or something, he hates to have to go there. But in general, he's like, fuck, California can do whatever they want. If they want to be a communist utopia, let them have at it. Just don't, just don't try to force me to live that way too. And
I think the only opinions matter are the people that live in California.
Yeah.
I
mean, we've entered this stage pretty explicitly over the last year and a half where they don't want to leave you alone. Like, they don't want to let you just live the way you want and live the way that's right for your own, for your own neighborhood, your own community, whatever. It's 100% regimented. It's like what you were saying with the speed limits, but it's with COVID regulations or, it's going to be with environmental regulations next. Like they just want the exact same thing everywhere. Everyone needs to conform. Everyone needs to do the exact same thing. And if you don't, not only is your opinion wrong, but you hate, you want the world to burn, or you want grandma to die, or you don't care about our kids. Like, they demonize you. They make you a bad person for thinking that their way of doing things is stupid.
Well, first off, to respond to that, I would have to actually value their opinion for it to have any kind of effect on me.
Yeah. That's true.
There's hypocrisy on both sides. I've always, it ain't no secret, I'm very conservative. I've always voted Republican. But a friend of mine told me the other day, said, you're a libertarian. I'm like, how do you figure? And I started lining up my values. I don't want to be a libertarian. I don't want to be a conservative. I don't want to be a liberal. I want to be an American. Yep. But I do lean right because I do believe in capitalism. I believe if I get up off my ass and I go to work, I should prosper more so than somebody who fails to do so. Right. I don't think that the government should have power like they have. I don't think it was designed that way. The people are supposed to be the power. We elect politicians to vote, make votes in Congress and in the Senate based on what we tell them, what's good for us. But they go up there after they get elected. They go up there, don't matter what we think. They do what they want. And I don't think that's right. That's not what we voted them in for. And it's become a big powerhouse. I mean, I say something, people say, oh, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. But prove me wrong. Okay, I say drugs should be legal. Well, you're a conservative. You can't say that. The hell I can't. If that's what makes me a conservative, then count me out.
Right.
I just don't. I mean, if you look at the structure of our government, give me one example on where do they get that authority to tell me that I can't smoke pot, and I don't do any drugs. But where do they get that authority to tell me I can't smoke pot? But I can go to the liquor store and get shit-faced drunk, and I'm held to an individual responsibility. If I get caught, then I go to jail, and that's a fair law. But if I smoke pot, not only do I get charged for DUI, but I get charged with the pot. Now, that's nothing to me more than a money racket, because if drugs were legal, then Big Pharma wouldn't exist. You know what I'm saying? So it's I don't know. I get on these rampages like this. It just irritates me that we've allowed our government to become too powerful, and it's not their position to be that powerful. So
yeah. No, I'm 100% there with you, man. Last thing I wanted to ask you about is, you're a trucker like me. You go all over the country. You see people everywhere. Do you think that do you think things are as bad as the media says? Do you think we are as divided as we're led to believe, or do you think we have more in common with each other and that things are going to turn out okay, just from everywhere you go and everybody you meet, everyone you talk to?
I think the media is 100% full of shit, because I'm a trucker like you said. I go places. I think that when it comes to people in general, I think the media effect, the social media effect, could kind of be like a frosting on a donut.
Yep.
Once you break that ice, people are just people, man. And whether you're liberal, gay, straight, Muslim, we all want the same damn things in life, but we got people whisper in our ear things that, for a brief moment in time, I think that we react to that as if it was true. But once you're around other people and you start talking and having conversations, you can't help but like each other.
Yeah.
And then at that point in time, when you have a conversation, when I'm out in Texas and I run into a black guy and Now he's being told by the media that whites don't like him. I'm being told by the media blacks don't like me. But when we get together, here we are laughing, cutting up, telling stories, talking about grandma, grandpa, and the way it used to be. And then we look at each other like, hey, wait a minute. We're supposed to hate each other. Why are we liking each other? So with that being said, I think that once you get past the frosting, you break that ice and you have a conversation, then it's obvious that they're full of shit. People like people. People need people. Nobody wants to be alone. And I promise you, if me and you had every single idea and we both agreed on it, what would we ever talk about?
Yep.
I mean, sir, what would we talk about? Oh, yeah, you're right. That's the end of the conversation. Oh, you're right. End of the conversation. So I don't know. It works for me that way.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there, man. I think not enough people actually work for a living anymore, because when you work for a living, like at the job I used to have, there were liberal people who worked there right next to conservative people, and you just had to get the job done. So you didn't care what each other's politics were. You just jump in the trench and get the work done. And I think I think more and more people are working in cubicles or working on computers, and it's easier to demonize your fellow man when you don't have to get anything done alongside them.
Or you don't have to face them.
Yeah, exactly. Like you don't have to humanize them. They can be a kind of a vague personality that you've created in your mind. Yeah. So, hey, man, I want to let you get back to work, but where can people follow you? I've got your Twitter linked in the description. I know you do comedy and you stop at truck stops and you do different things all over the place, but where can people keep up with you and follow what you're doing?
I'm on Facebook. I don't really like Facebook. I don't really use Facebook except, family and a few friends. But Twitter is where I'm at Taylorbuilt, TAYLORBILT. Like Peterbilt, but Taylorbuilt. Yep. And that's usually where I do most of my tweeting, or LinkedIn under the same name. But yeah, we it's ironic. I'm gonna say this before I go. I didn't know you were a trucker.
Oh, okay.
I did. I had no idea, and I get, and I'll be honest with you, I'm one of those guys that gets followed. When you follow me on Twitter, I go down my follows and I just hit the follow button because I want to follow back. And I don't really read a lot of profiles until I see them post something. And that's when I do my engaging. So I don't know how long, I'll be honest with you, I don't know how long we've been following each other. I have seen some of your posts. I probably maybe liked or retweeted if I have or haven't. But when you engage with me, it's like, hey, then I started seeing who you were and what you were about. And but it's a pretty cool cat. We totally disagree on topics, but I see how you respond to people, and that was respectable, for the most part. I mean, from what I've seen, I didn't see anything where you disagree with somebody and said, "Oh, screw you, asshole! You're a jerk. You're a dumbass." You asked that one question nobody likes. Why? It's enough to say something, but when somebody's forced to explain themselves, then you could tell in 5 minutes, whether or not you want to continue the conversation. But no, I was truly impressed, and I appreciate the opportunity to you reaching out to me and me reaching back out to you. And hopefully I made a friend for life. And if you need something out there, you need to retweet it, just tag me. If you tag me for some strange reason, I'll be like, well, that's what he needs. Retweet, So I want to help. I don't care if they're liberals or gays, blacks, Muslims, Christians, atheists. I actually post things that I don't agree with because I know people that follow me do agree with it, and it's for them, not for me. I don't care. I just want. I'm an American. I want to get along with other Americans.
Yeah. No, I hear you, man. I've been following you, I think, since January. I've really enjoyed, the stuff you put out there. And I thank you for your kind words. There are some times where I'll call people an idiot. I mean, they'll drive me to that point, but you're right for the most part. I just want to know why. Why do you think what you think? Just, I don't think most people think about how they arrive at their conclusions anymore. They're just kind of driven there.
That's a good point. Good point. That's a good statement right there.
Yeah. But yeah, thanks, man. And
hey, I appreciate you having me, man.
If you're ever out in Salt Lake area, hit me up and we'll take you out for a beer or something.
Hey, I'll take you out for a beer, then we'll have 2 beers.
All right, man. We'll keep the rubber side down.
All right, brother. You be careful out there, and I appreciate the opportunity, and we'll catch up with you soon.
All right, man. Catch you later.